Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Womelsdorf, joined today by Miguel Alvarez, Nova Space CRO, as well as Mark Wagner with the spaceprize.org. And we're here to just discuss today a little bit about what Space Prize does and some of the awesome things that they're offering to students, and how Nova Space and Space Prize are working together to get space education out to the masses. So, Mark, if you don't mind introducing yourself real quick. Folks have already met myself and Miguel quite often on these live streams. So over to you for a brief introduction, then we'll kind of jump into the discussion here.
Awesome, sure. So I'm a lifelong space enthusiast and a former high school English teacher, but I those things found some intersection in my love of education technology, where I worked as a tech coordinator at the school and the district and the county level here in California. And about 15 years ago, 17 years ago, something like that, left and started my own business, and have been involved in professional development for teachers ever since. But about 2.5 years ago, right before the pandemic, started a pivot into space education, and have been thrilled to get connected with Space Prize Foundation during that time, and to be working with them on not just exciting contests, but universal space literacy is kind of the end game there.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks. So for those that are unfamiliar with Space Prize, can you kind of share a little bit about it, as well as how it got started and your all's mission today?
Sure thing. Yeah. Space Prize is...
I'll bring up your presentation here.
Yeah, feel free to bring up the slide at any point. But the Space Prize is a nonprofit based in New York, but doing work globally, focused on empowering young people, particularly young women, to explore STEAM education, that's science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math, and to pursue or explore careers in the space industry. Which is growing quickly, and there's a lot more career trajectories there than there's ever been. So if you head over to spaceprize.org, you can learn more about it. But just by way of a quick introduction, one of the ways we do this is we focus on attention-grabbing contests with spectacular prizes. So we ran our first Space Prize Challenge in New York City earlier this year. So in January, we had a essay contest followed by a video contest. In February, we worked with public schools across the city. So this was available to young women aged 14 to 18. And we chose 5 finalists from each of the 5 boroughs in the city, and then eventually a winner from each of the 5 boroughs in the city. And as you guys know, because we wound up with such a variety of great winning experiences, and some of them had age requirements, we actually ended up with 9 winners. So some of the runners-up had to be in there. So in March, we had the 25 finalists go through a simulated mission to Mars at the Challenger Center right there in Manhattan, which was a spectacular experience. And that same week, through a partnership with an organization called the Female Quotient, those 25 finalists all got their faces up on a massive billboard in Times Square. This was the kind of thing, if you can imagine kids in New York City, they were bringing their grandparents in from outside the city to see it and everything. It was a great moment to bring that together with the big prompt about talking gender equity in space right on the billboard. 4 of the winners got to go to Space Camp's LIFT program in Huntsville, Alabama. And so for some of them, that's the first time on the plane, and they had a great experience there. The LIFT program is Space Camp's new leadership program. So really fantastic, and excited for those girls to get to be a part of that. And 5 of the final grand prize winners took a 0G flight in May, along with Star Trek's Denise Crosby and our own executive director, Kim Macharia. So that was sort of the culmination of the first challenge in New York. Each of the winners, all 9 of them, have a mentorship from a influential woman they're paired with a particular woman, each of them, in the space industry. So that's still ongoing. And then obviously, including our partnership with you folks at Nova Space, there's a lot of other benefits that they're reaping over the course of the year. We have a similar challenge that's recently been launched in Paris, working with a school there, again, open to girls ages 14 to 18. The grand prize, again, is going to be a flight on a parabolic flight. We'll announce the winners at IAC in September in Paris. And we just launched a contest for all of Portugal. This is for slightly older age group due to some limitations on the 0G flight, but we're really, really excited that that's underway now in conjunction with the first Portuguese person to go up to space who just went up last week on Blue Origin. So we're excited about that. In addition to the attention-grabbing contests, we're also working on some open education resources that are available to everyone. We asked ourselves right up front, what do we do for the girls that don't go up and want to have a meaningful learning experience for them? So one thing we do is a weekly speaker series. We're featuring astronauts, engineers, scientists, but also entrepreneurs, designers, lawyers, historians, and many, many more. I talked earlier about all the different career trajectories into the space program or the space industry now, the space economy now, I should say. And so we're talking to folks from all across the space economy, mostly women, but also some men, sharing their story and their experience and their trajectory into that career. At the same time, we've been developing a space education curriculum, which is due out at the end of this month. You can see here that it's a pretty ambitious one. It's not just history of space exploration and a little bit about intro to space science, but this is also why space matters to everyone here on Earth. It looks at the skill sets and mindsets that students will need to be successful, whether or not they go into space. It also looks at the new space economy and at philosophical issues like ethics and governance and sustainability, that kind of thing. I should also say more of a personal plug, a great companion to that just came out 2 weeks ago, my own book on space education. This is not so much for an audience of students, but more for educators and enthusiasts. If you're interested, it's a great companion to the curriculum. It also looks a few steps further ahead to how we might educate students once we actually do have settlements on the moon and Mars and perhaps in a deep space habitat, right? So if you want to learn more about what we're up to, it's spaceprize.org. And I know there's some questions to follow, and I'm excited to share a little bit more right now too.
Mark, thanks for the presentation. That was an amazing presentation of what you guys are doing and what you're doing for the industry. My first question is, you guys as well as us, we're very much interested in diversifying the workforce in the space industry. So inclusion and diversity is very important as the industry grows, and it's going to be absolutely needed. So from your perspective, what's working and what's not in regards to inclusion and diversity in the space industry?
If you look at the industry right now, particularly with a view to gender equity, which is what Space Prize has been focused on, depending on how you measure it and who's measuring, the workforce is only about 20% women. Particularly if you're looking at leadership positions or technical positions. And so that means that's a lot of talent left on the table at the very least. And it's to everyone's benefit to ensure that any young women who are interested in space science, interested in the space economy, are empowered to pursue that education and pursue those careers. It's going to be better for everyone. And with slightly broader strokes, having a diversity of backgrounds, diversity of opinions, diversity of viewpoints and experiences in the room when you're designing for humanity's future is important. And that's not just gender equity. That's, in this country, we're certainly concerned about race and so forth, but the age and international perspectives, I get a lot of value out of talking to colleagues from around the world, and they bring a totally different perspective than an American perspective. And that's very true in the aerospace industry. And it's looking at people with disabilities or looking at gender equity even more broadly than we might look at it with respect to women. We have a great partnership with the organization called Gaze in Space, which started out looking at LGBTQ representation in science fiction entertainment, but now they're looking at, as they say, gaze in actual space. And it's mind blowing to think, if we look at 20% of the workforce being women and it's like 12% of astronauts or people who have been to space have been women. But it's similarly mind blowing to look back and see the first first person who was LGBTQ person who was out of the closet was like in the last decade. And if you look at Sally Ride, didn't come out till her death. So there's a lot of dimensions of diversity and inclusion that need to come a long way with respect to a space prize. But you also asked what's working. That it's 20% is a lot better than it was decades ago. And anecdotally, I heard from somebody on the the Starliner team recently, which is at Boeing, which is an old, very staid aerospace company that's very male and very traditional in a lot of ways demographically. But for the Starliner team, that's they at least with the folks that they worked with, it's nearly 50-50. So in the newer companies, in the newer teams at the big staid companies, it seems like things are also getting better. It's not to say there isn't a lot of work to do, especially with empowering young people, but it does seem to be getting better.
Well, that's a great perspective. It's interesting because when we talk about sending folks to other celestial bodies such as the moon or Mars, if we're going to create communities on these other celestial bodies, you're right. We're going to have a diverse set of ideas. It's not just going to be a certain type of person that's going to get to go up there and do stuff. It is going to require really a representation of what we have here on Earth, and we're going to transfer it to another celestial body. So we need to start that education now. And one of the interesting things that I've noticed, this past year, an old high school buddy of mine, he's a teacher on the south side of Chicago, and he asked me to come by and talk to some of his middle school kids. And one of the most surprising things that I found out when talking with these young ladies, specifically, I asked them a very specific question. Have you ever had anybody in your life tell you that you couldn't do something just because you're a girl? Every single one of them raised their hand saying, yeah, I did. And what's even more interesting when I had a follow-up question, asking them, well, who has told you this in your life? And I didn't ask them to name any names, but they all said, family members, people in their communities, which, was very surprising. So, we still have a very long way to go as far as, one, educating people on what the aerospace industry is, what's possible, and really educating them on, hey, you have a place in this new economy, in this new ecosystem.
So we recently partnered with you guys to give 9 high school students access to some Nova Space course material. So I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about that. I was wondering if you would mind sharing some about the process of what those 9 high school students went through during the competition for the whole suite of prizes that you awarded to them. And then, again, just kind of giving an overview of what that competition was like for them.
Sure thing. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm actually going to back up a step, and it'll be a good segue. But one of the things Miguel just said was there is another dimension of diversity that we hadn't, that is, if you look at the aerospace industry, it's largely driven by the military-industrial complex. And that's a certain way of thinking, a certain way of doing things. It certainly attracts a certain kind of people. But if you think about civilian settlements on another planet or on the moon or in space, it leads real quickly, you can imagine, the problems if it's a military-industrial settlement and you don't have a broader, more diverse civilian population. It can start to feel kind of Orwellian.
Absolutely.
The arts, and we're including the humanities, and I think, especially coming as somebody who's space education, and I got a graduate certificate in space philosophy, like I'm just exists. Philosophy and the humanities and the arts are really important to being human and really important to understanding the world and making sense of it. And that needs to be a part of our planning for space too, especially in the long term. But I think also in today's staid aerospace companies. So our contest started with an essay contest, and some girls who entered the essay contest were entering because they saw an essay contest as something that's for them as a writer. They weren't necessarily entering in because they saw space as something for them because they're good at math or an engineer or something like that, right? So that was interesting that right from the beginning we had a diversity of even just looking at young women, just public high schools in New York. We also had this diversity of writers entering the contest, not just math and science students, right? And same thing with the video. Now the video gave them an opportunity for some degree of performance, verbal performance, or maybe they're on camera, or maybe they were artistic with a stop motion video or something like that. So there were these kind of other elements to the contest rather than just being like a robotics contest or something, right? So we're definitely interested in supporting young women who are interested in engineering and robotics. But part of the message that Space Prize has is that if you're not into engineering and math, like there are other ways into the space industry, and most importantly into the future of humanity. So I think it's interesting to talk about how we saw the first and the winners change over those months. Some of the girls' videos were good enough to get them into the finals and so forth, or even to a winner. But you look at that compared to where they wound up, and you see how much confidence they gained over the course of the contest was the kind of part sobering, part gratifying to see that we had a Yuri's and them in April. Winners gave gave acceptance speeches there, seeing their attitude change in terms of their own confidence in their efficacy and their own ability to think about the space industry. And there's one girl in particular who got up and talked about being a English and history, not a science and math nut, but her dad encouraged her to go off and contest, and she ended up being paired with a mentor who is a writer was in PR for NASA in the 80s, and worked for Boeing for years and worked for a bunch of startups. Paula Korn is one of our mentors. And so this girl, Maya, was so thrilled to see that there was a space industry for writers, and that she could have a role in that, and she could be good at that. And I happen to know Maya is one of the ones that signed up for the course. So now she's got this, professional development, mental adults, opportunity at her fingertips, where she's going to learn more about the industry. And that's really exciting that opportunity is available to her now.
Yeah, that point really hits home. I mean, I was a history major in college and somehow found myself in the space industry. So yeah, it's amazing to watch folks who don't think that they have a place in the industry find their way through it. So any kind of initiative that helps folks get involved is a great initiative.
And now we do. I mean, we literally over the last few months of doing the guest speaker series, we've talked to space artists, and we've talked to literally spacecraft interior designer. Like that is a job today in 2022. Like, ultra wealthy people are paying to go to space. They want to be comfortable. So things are definitely changing, and there's room for a lot of people. We also talked to, we haven't interviewed them yet, but we have zero-G fashion designers coming in on the show in a few months. So there's a lot of opportunity in this industry right now.
Very cool.
That's amazing. Yeah. In fact, at the Space Symposium, Jeff, met a young lady who was a musician and decided that I'm going to pick up software engineering, and now is working for a space company doing some software. So pretty cool stuff when you open the aperture of what's in the realm of possible for folks. And that, one of the things that's important to us at Nova Space is dispelling that myth that to do anything in the space industry, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be an aerospace engineer. You can come from any background, and that's actually needed, right? Because like you mentioned, Mark, if we're going to do great things in space, on the moon, on orbit, in Mars, it's going to require a different way of thinking out of the box. So that's going to propel us forward. So next question for you, Mark, is, so what's next for Space Prize? Well, you sort of mentioned it in your presentation, but what are some of the next big efforts that you guys are going to be doing here in the next 6 months?
Yeah, so the additional regional contests, like what's happening in Paris and Portugal right now, and the curriculum, releasing the curriculum here at the end of the month. Those are definitely the big things on our radar right now. In the long run, we would love to host more regional contests. We've talked about doing something in New Mexico in conjunction with Spaceport America. And one of the interesting things about that is that so many of the students in New Mexico, it's like 80 to 90% free and reduced lunch in most of the schools. They're not, they're fairly economically disadvantaged communities, and the kids are not connected to all the amazing stuff in space that's going on around them. And so trying to connect those dots, we'd really love to do that. We've talked about an LA one, a UK one. We're looking at Hong Kong one, but it's really a matter of where can we find the right partners, where can we find the right funding to make those things happen. Meanwhile, we still have reservations on Space Perspective in 2025. So following a number of these regional contests, we hope to run a global contest, which we plan to launch in 2024. And the winners of that will get to go up to the edge of space on a balloon and enjoy the views for several hours. We have a lot of plans for the curriculum beyond the online Flexbook, which is an open education resource that students and educators and enthusiasts can use anywhere. Beyond that, again, pending the right partners and funding, we're looking at making a number of interactive simulations for that, more student projects and lesson plans surrounding the Flexbook. But the Flexbook itself it's amazing. It's certainly a textbook analogy, but it's 400 pages of content, and I hope it sees good use. So just getting it out there and getting it used, running workshops for teachers is going to be a big part of the release plan. We've also talked, if you're talking about what's next for Space Prize, we have a partnership already with Gaze in Space. There's some really great stuff happening with Astro Access and people with disabilities getting on zero-G flights too. I like to think that there's a lot of future in additional space prizes, looking at additional demographics that might also benefit from being inspired and empowered to be a part of all this. And if, between you and me, fingers crossed, no NDAs with the public videos, we hope to be sending some young women to actual space, not just parabolic flights or the edge of space here soon. And that's hopefully that some of those projects come through.
Awesome. Very cool. And then, to kind of wrap it up. So for folks that are interested in connecting with you, kind of in two parts. So organizations that might want to partner you, as well as folks who may have candidates that they'd like to submit for one of your competitions. How can people get in touch with you, and what's the process for that look like?
Awesome. Yeah, it's real easy. Spaceprize.org. You can join our mailing list there. There's contact information there. You can certainly reach out to me. It's mark@spaceprize.org. It's mark@spaceprize.org. I'm also not hard to find on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that, where we're sharing a lot of our updates. Most social media, you can also find Space Prize Foundation at the Space Prize. So Twitter, etc., you can find the Space Prize and see all the notifications there. But a lot of easy ways to get in touch with me or with the team. Or with Kim or Masharia, our executive director. She's just Kim at spaceprize.org if you want to reach out to any of us.
Great. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll be sure to put all of those in the description for this live stream here. Mark, Miguel, thanks for your time. Mark, again, thanks for joining us here at Nova Space to discuss what Space Prize Foundation is doing. A lot of great stuff. And hopefully we can do something like this again as you're doing more competitions and getting more students involved and spreading the good word of space.
I hope so. And for what it's worth, I'm excited about some of the things you guys are working on. So hopefully we'll be able to partner up on that too.
Absolutely. We look forward to it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Paul.